Welcome to episode number 212 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. I'm recording live on YouTube on December 11, 2017. I am solo again this week. My co-host BL OCHMAN is still in rehab after breaking some bones in a scary accident. She's gonna be on the mend probably till early January, so send her best wishes to David at bsmediashow.com, and I'll forward them on to BL. In the meantime, you got me solo. Topics this week include Spotify accepting podcasts, crafty cease and desist, wine label design, YouTube Studio, Google's wake-up call, meta description expansion, changing Leopard's spots, and lip-syncing Obama. We started off with the best, and the best is that Libsyn is now accepting podcasts, or Spotify is accepting podcasts through its partners, such as Libsyn, which is the audio host that we use for this podcast. And so customers can now submit their podcast to Spotify from a form on Libsyn that generates a Spotify-specific RSS feed to submit to the streaming service. I submitted our feed through Libsyn last week and just searched the Spotify app and discovered we're now available on Spotify. So just search Beyond Social Media Show or Beyond Social Media. You'll be able to find us there on the Spotify app and follow us from there if that's your preferred channel. That's not just good for us. Of course, it is more audience, but it's good for podcasting in general. That Spotify has opened up its audience beyond music. Given Spotify's Discover Weekly algorithm that we discussed in episode 207, Spotify can apply that algorithm to podcasts and make them more discoverable by people who would be most likely to listen to them. So very good matching technology there that can help podcasters find new audience and podcast listeners find new podcasts. And then also consider that Spotify recently acquired Soundtrap that we discussed in episode 211, which is a cloud recording studio service, basically, for collaborating on music. But you could easily change that for turn it into a podcast, a virtual podcast recording studio as well. So couple those two technologies and the addition of podcast to Spotify's library looks for rosy days ahead for podcasters, I believe. On the next story, and this is something we discussed last week. It's in the news this week. This is from an article by Tim Nudd at Adweek. So last week we discussed Modist Brewing's culture jacking of Budweiser Light's Dilly Dilly commercials with the release of their Dilly Dilly Mosaic Double IPA brew. And as I mentioned last week, I got an email from Modist announcing the Dilly Dilly release. They're the Minneapolis brewer, craft brewer, and saw that they were releasing a Dilly Dilly beer, and thought, well, they're practically begging Anheuser-Busch to send them a cease and desist letter. And of course, Anheuser-Busch and Bev delivered, and did they ever. The letter, the cease and desist letter that they sent reads as follows. Dear friend of the Crown, Modist Brewing Company, congratulations on the launch of your new beer, Dilly Dilly Mosaic Double IPA. Let it be known that we believe any beer shared between friends is a fine beer indeed, and we are duly flattered by your loyal tribute. However, Dilly Dilly is the motto of our realm, so we humbly ask that you keep this to a limited edition, one-time only run. This is by order of the king. Disobedience shall be met with additional scrolls, then a formal warning, and finally a private tour of the pit of misery. Please send a raven, letter, or electronic mail to let us know that you agree with this request. Also, we will be sending you to, we will be in your fair citadel of Minneapolis for the Super Bowl, and would love to offer 2 thrones to said game for 2 of your finest employees to watch the festivities and enjoy a few Bud Lights. On us. Yours truthfully, Bud Light. So Bud Light delivered the letter, not just a cease and desist letter that was cleverly written, as you can see, but they delivered it in person on site to Modist Brewing in the form of an actor to play the town crier, who was decked out in medieval garb, and he recited the cease and desist letter on premise from a parchment scroll. So nice touches all around. Modist, of course, caught it on video. We'll have that on the show notes, embedded in the show notes at beyondsocialmediashow.com/212. The ploy, too, generated earned media from the likes of our local alternative weekly, City Pages. Growler magazine covered it, in addition to Adweek. So cease and desist letters, they're a necessary part of doing business. They're a required legal tool to demonstrate you've taken measures to protect your intellectual property. But best practices for these letters have kind of evolved in the age of the internet. Standard practice used to be sending a strongly worded and threatening letter to an offender, but then after companies began getting social media backlashes because people would, logically enough, post them online, corporate company attorneys have tended to take a softer approach with these. And now it appears that public relations departments are having a say, which is a good thing. In episode 202, we discussed Netflix's cease and desist over a Stranger Things themed pop-up restaurant in Chicago. The letter was written as if it were from a character from the show, and basically they said a limited run for your restaurant is okay, but don't do it again. So very nice and clever responses with these cease and desist letters. This is a fantastic article by Frank Kelhay of Quartz, and it is an excellent story that deconstructs the graphic design of wine labels and the stories they tell for marketing purposes. So the wine industry typically doesn't do much advertising. Their labels are the primary means by which they differentiate and brand themselves. So Francois Beaubry analyzed Wine Spectator's top 100 over the course of 5 years and identified two broad categories of labels that tell different types of stories. The first are ego-centered Jupiterian labels. I don't really know what that means, but they develop stories about the wine itself, its greatness and history, the savoir-faire behind its production. And the second category are consumer-oriented Bacchic labels, which evoke not only the wine, but also the consumers who drink it and the benefits of doing so. So two examples from the article, one from each category. Opus 1 is a Napa Valley wine. The label presents the wine as a work of art with a sketch of the bust of its two creators on the label. And you also see the signatures of the creators beneath that. And that, of course, suggests that the wine itself is a work of art signed by the artist who created it. And then Besame Mucho, which is Yecla, Spain, which is from Yecla, Spain, tells a straightforward story of the wine as seduction. The typography on the label illustrates the brand name in the shape of lips waiting to be kissed. So the kiss could be a romantic dinner, but then it could be metaphorically, it could represent the encounter of the lips to the wine itself. So the suggestion on the label is that wine tasting approaches sexual pleasure. Very clever design in that label. It's a fascinating read. There's a bunch more examples on the article. We'll include a link in the show notes at beyondsocialmediashow.com/212. YouTube is revamping its creator studio. They're rebranding it the YouTube Studio. They have a new interface, and it makes it a lot cleaner and easier to use. You can edit your titles, your descriptions, your settings all in one place with an inline editing feature. There's smart filtering that makes it easier to navigate your channel quickly. There's smarter account access. So if you collaborate with people on a channel, you want to give them access to the channel, you can now give them more finely grained access and to specific things like analytics, revenue, or more. You can also get customized suggestions, so you'll know when the best time to respond to comments, the best way to engage with your top fans, and collaboration suggestions to grow your audience. I've been playing around with it. It's really easy to use. I really like the interface, very clean. It's easy. It seems easier to find things, so good development there. Then there's this great, a great article by TechCrunch's Frederick Lardinois about Google Maps. So now I use Google Maps for navigation all the time in the car, but I ride the bus to work and back every day. So Google Maps now has a new feature for us commuters. And so when you tap the start button with Google Maps on your mobile app, if you're riding the bus or a train, you'll get details about your train transit and live updates as you ride. But it will even, and this is the nicest feature of it, it will even remind you to get off your bus or your train when you're close to your stop. So very helpful if you're in a new city and you don't know your way around, but also helpful if you are sleepy, right? A couple of times I might have missed my bus stop by falling asleep. So very cool feature there. Google has expanded the meta description length. That's the text that appears under the hyperlink in search results. And this is from a Moz Whiteboard Friday video by Rand Fishkin. So Google has officially expanded the length of the text it uses for that from the typical 100 or previous 165 characters to beyond. Their meta description guidelines doesn't have an official recommended length, but Danny Sullivan, the longtime SEO writer, recommends no greater than 320 characters. Fishkin cites 51% of search results use the longer meta descriptions from a study he cites in the Whiteboard Friday video. And at least, and those such as search results have at least one result that has the longer description, but most are still short. So if you start updating your meta descriptions now, you may get additional visibility simply by virtue that everybody else hasn't done so yet. So get on it, right? I suspect the change has a lot to do with providing more content for text-to-speech translations in Google Home. So my optimization recommendations are start doing it. Answer questions that are, if you're targeting search terms that suggest a question, answer those questions in your meta description, but also write some persuasive copy to get people to click. Because if Google is drawing more text from the meta description, it's more likely that the searcher's answer is going to be answered within that text, and therefore click-through rates might be dropping off. So it's imperative, if you want people to get to your site, to write persuasive copy to both answer their question, but then provide them a compelling reason to click for more information. And take a look at your most important landing pages that are getting the most traffic from search, and start re-optimizing those with as the low-hanging fruit. So that's the best for this week. On to the worst. And the worst, I often have stuff that the technology might be pretty cool, but it also might be kind of freaky. And this is the case with this one. This is from a NextWeb article by Tristan Green. And Tristan cites a company called NVIDIA that is known for making graphics processing units, but has been making a name for itself in artificial intelligence. A month ago, they demonstrated AI technology that could create realistic headshots of people that do not exist. Researchers had built a global adversarial network that can pit two AI systems against one another in order to produce better results. So there are these in this case, higher quality photographs of fake people. The machines would split the work into creating images and judging images, and then pitted them against one another in order to fine-tune the results. Scientists fed the AI images of actual celebrities to get it started, and from there practiced on gradually increasing the resolutions to produce fairly realistic pictures, and they are very realistic. So we'll put those in the show notes as well. But now the company is demonstrating video manipulation AI. So their researchers have developed an unsupervised learning method that allows for sweeping changes to video content that it's fed. And this is pretty amazing stuff too. And we'll have videos on the show notes at beyondsocialmediashow.com/212. But the video will change a snow scene in a video or the AI technology will change a snow scene in the video to summer, or a day scene to night, or cat species to other cat species. So it can change a leopard to a kitty cat. It's pretty amazing. So in episode 174, we talked about fake news getting about a lot freakier. This is the future. And another story that builds onto that is from the University of Washington, where researchers have built an algorithm that can create a video of President Barack Obama and have him lip sync whatever audio is fed. So they given audio of President Barack Obama, they synthesized a high quality video of him speaking with accurate lip sync composited to a target video clip. They use a recurring neural network that learned from mapping the raw audio features to mouth shapes and by training on many hours of Barack Obama's weekly address footage. So they trained on understanding Barack Obama's facial expressions when he talks, and then mapping that to the audio from those tracks. So it's amazingly realistic, and we'll include those in the show notes as well. On to shiny new stuff, and I have one cool new tool this week. This is from a TechCrunch article by Ron Miller. And Google has put some automation behind pivot tables. Pivot tables, if you never use them, are a feature that allow you to reorganize and summarize selected columns and rows of data in a spreadsheet or a database to create a report. So Google is automating pivot tables using artificial intelligence in their Google Sheets product. An example of how you might use pivot tables is I might have an online learning system that I sell to organizations who then input their own employees by manager. And with a pivot table, I can filter all the employees who passed a given course or courses by their manager. So this new feature builds on the Explore feature the company added last year. It adds machine learning to pivot tables. So instead of manually creating a pivot table, Google Sheets can suggest a pivot table automatically. There's also natural language querying within the Explorer pane, so you can ask questions in plain English, and the application can find data in the pivot table for you. So that's pretty cool. I will definitely be using that. I want to cite an article I was quoted in by Lisa Lacey, given our discussion of the expansion of meta descriptions, 15 secrets to creating the perfect meta descriptions. Bunch of good recommendations there. I contribute a little bit to it, and I'll put a link into that in the show notes. And finally, let's wrap this up with the daily numbers. And this week, the daily numbers are really not numbers, but a map. And it's a map by Equality of Opportunity Project of where inventors grow up. So this is the origins of inventors, patent rates by area where inventors grew up as children. So patent holders and where they grew up as children. Map of the United States. And it's pretty striking where the concentrations of patent holders are. Across the South, it's pretty much barren, except in Texas, there's a concentration in Austin, which makes sense. There are highlights across the West Coast where Silicon Valley is, and Upper West Coast where Washington State is. A lot of technological innovation in there. But then from the Midwest on across, so from Minnesota basically on across the Midwest to the East Coast, that's where the concentration of patent holders are. And it's striking from Minnesota that there's a heavy concentration of patent rates in Minneapolis itself. And I was thinking about that. And the place that I live, I think fosters innovation because we have a bunch of things that put together create an environment where innovation can occur. We have a lot of companies that are very innovative. We have a lot of medical technology companies with Medtronic and other companies headquartered in the Twin Cities. We've got 3M, which has long been an innovative company. We've got excellent educational system, land-grant university, research educational institutions. We have a very diverse population. You wouldn't think of it in Minnesota, but actually it's true in the Twin Cities. So we have a lot of big cross-pollinating of ideas. We have a vibrant arts culture. and a lot of time indoors during cold winters. So a lot of time for people to tinker around. So anyway, take a look at it. We'll have that map on the show notes at beyondsocialmediashow.com/212. It's pretty fascinating. So let's wrap this up then. Thanks for watching episode number 212 of the Beyond Social Media Show. We are linking to, I will link to everything at beyondsocialmediashow.com/212. Tell somebody about this podcast. Help us out. If you know somebody who you think would like the podcast, just give us a shout out to them and let them know about the podcast. Send them the website so they can find it and just help us out that way. You can find my co-host BL Ochman on Twitter at What's Next is her Twitter handle. Her blog is whatsnextblog.com. I am on Twitter at D Erickson. My blog is e-strategyblog.com. The website is for the show beyondsocialmediashow.com. We're on YouTube at Beyond Social Media. We're on Twitter at BS Media Show. We're on iTunes. We're now on Spotify. We're on Google Play Music. We're on Stitcher. We're on iHeartRadio. So subscribe in your favorite podcast forum and encourage your friends to subscribe. Until next week, thanks for watching.